I spent $120,000 on a family vacation to Hawaii. I paid for the first-class tickets, the oceanfront suites at the Four Seasons, and the new designer wardrobe my daughter-in-law insisted she absolutely needed for the tropical climate. But standing there at the airport, right in front of the priority check-in counter, with the deafening noise of the terminal buzzing around us, my son looked me dead in the eye and said, "I forgot to book your ticket, Dad. Just go home." They planned to leave me behind from the very beginning. The next day, I had 135 missed calls from them. But before I tell you exactly how I made them regret every single second of their betrayal, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit like and subscribe if you think family loyalty should be a two-way street. My name is George Caldwell. I am 70 years old, and for the last decade, I have allowed my family to believe that I am just a tired, retired old man who exists solely to sign checks and fade quietly into the background. Standing in the middle of Terminal 4 at Los Angeles International Airport, I looked less like the former CEO of a global shipping logistics empire and more like a glorified porter. My hands were gripping the leather handles of two massive Louis Vuitton trunks. The trunks belonged to Monica, my daughter-in-law. She was tapping furiously on her phone, her thumb scrolling through Instagram. Bradley, my son, was manic. He was bouncing on the balls of his feet, holding a stack of navy blue passports. He was 40 years old, but in that specific moment, he looked exactly like a teenager getting away with the heist of the century. He was intoxicated by the illusion of power. This trip was supposed to be profoundly special. It was the 40th anniversary of the day I married my late wife, Sarah. Sarah was gone, taken by a sudden stroke 3 years ago. But I wanted to keep the promise. I transferred $120 to Bradley's account 2 weeks ago. I told him to handle the logistics. I wanted to see my grandchildren playing in the sand where their grandmother used to walk. I wanted to feel like a patriarch, a beloved grandfather, not a walking bank vault. The agent behind the counter beckoned us forward. Bradley stepped up, slapping the passports onto the marble counter. "5 for Honolulu," he announced, his voice booming loud enough for the people in the economy line to hear. He thrived on the jealousy of strangers. I shuffled forward, dragging Monica's absurdly heavy trunks. Monica finally looked up from her phone. She rolled her eyes at my slow pace. "Hurry up." "George," she snapped. She never called me Dad. It was always George, said with the exact same tone one uses to scold a slow, disobedient dog. The agent scanned the passports. "I see 5 passengers here, Mr. Caldwell," the agent said, "but I see 6 people in your party." I looked at Bradley. For a brief second, I genuinely thought it was a simple clerical mistake. "Oh, right," Bradley said, his voice changed. It took on a tone of heavily rehearsed sorrow. He turned to me and looked me dead in the eye. There was no panic in his gaze. There was only a cold emptiness. "Dad, I am so sorry. What do you mean?" I asked, my voice steady. "I completely forgot to book your ticket," Bradley said smoothly. I was so focused on the kids and Monica's seat upgrades. It just slipped my mind entirely. I thought Monica did it. It is a total disaster. He did not look like it was a disaster. He looked exactly like an actor. Reading a script, Monica chimed in immediately. "Honestly, George, it might be for the best. You know how your blood pressure gets on long flights. And the heat in Hawaii is absolutely terrible this time of year. You would just be miserable. I can check availability on the flight, sir," the agent offered gently. "There are still 2 seats left in first class. If you have a credit card, we can book it right now." "No," Bradley cut her off sharply. "Dad does not have his wallet. He left it at home. And honestly, it is way too much stress for him. He gets confused easily these days. The dementia. You know." He tapped his temple significantly. I gripped the handle of my carry-on bag so hard my knuckles turned white. Confused. I was the man who had ruthlessly negotiated trade deals with the toughest union leaders in Detroit. But to my own son, I was just a senile old prop. Bradley turned back to me. "Look, Dad, just take an Uber home. Relax. Enjoy the quiet house. We will FaceTime you when we get to the beach. Go home, get some rest." He signaled to the airport porter to take Monica's bags from my hands. Then, without waiting for my response, Bradley grabbed Monica's hand and walked briskly toward the VIP security checkpoint. I stood there, frozen to the floor. I watched my son walk away from me as if I were a piece of trash. "Sir," the agent whispered. "Are you okay?" I blinked. I stood up straighter. "No, thank you," I said, my voice crisp, clear, and ringing with authority. "I am perfectly fine. In fact, I have never been more clear-headed in my entire life." I walked out of the terminal and dialed a secure number. "Silas," I said, "plans have changed. Pick me up at Terminal 4. Bring the Phantom. Do not tell anyone you are coming." 20 minutes later, the extended wheelbase Rolls-Royce Phantom pulled up to the curb. It was a car Bradley had begged me to sell just last year. I had told him I sold it. I lied. I kept it hidden in a private garage, meticulously maintained by Silas, my driver and personal security chief for over 30 years. "Home, sir?" Silas asked. "Yes, Silas, but take the scenic route along the coast. I have some serious thinking to do." As the massive car glided away, the initial shock of the betrayal began to wear off. It was replaced by a cold, calculating rage. It wasn't about the money. It was the staggering realization that my very presence was an inconvenience to their happiness. They wanted my money, but they wanted me invisible. We arrived at the Caldwell estate. The entire household staff had been given the week off. I went straight down the hall to the library, my command center. I sat at my mahogany desk and flipped open my laptop. I was retired, yes, but I still maintained absolute, untethered administrative access to every single family bank account, trust fund, and corporate holding. Bradley arrogantly thought he had financial control because I allowed him to use the secondary credit cards. He thought he owned me completely because I had signed a limited power of attorney for specific medical decisions. I logged into the secure banking portal. The transaction history showed the initial transfer of $120,000, but that was merely the appetizer. I opened the credit card statement for the black Onyx card, the one for emergencies only. Four Seasons Maui. He had booked the male presidential suite. $25,000 a night. He had already blown through the cash transfer entirely and was now greedily eating into my personal credit line. But as I dug deeper, the burning anger was replaced by a chill that froze my blood. I found a saved email draft in the synchronized family cloud account. The email was addressed to a private equity firm called Apex Capital, notorious vulture capitalists. The subject line read, "Sale of Caldwell Logistics Holdings." "Dear Mr. Sterling," the email read, "my father is not in a position to manage the company anymore. His cognitive decline is accelerating. I have the medical power of attorney. I am ready to close the deal in Hawaii. I am willing to let the controlling stake go for $5 million cash if we can close immediately." $5 million. The company was worth $50 million, conservative estimate. My son was actively planning to sell my life's work for 10 cents on the dollar, just to pay off his hidden debts and live like a king. And he was going to use a completely fabricated diagnosis of dementia to legally pull it off. Suddenly, the scene at the airport made perfect sense. He couldn't illegally sell the company if I was there, lucid and in charge. He needed me out of the way, completely isolated and supposedly confused in Los Angeles, while he played the big-shot CEO in Maui. "I tried, Sarah," I whispered to the empty room. "I gave him chance after chance, but this is not a mistake. This is an execution." I dialed Catherine Ross, my personal attorney. "George," she answered. "Is everything okay?" "Plans have dramatically changed, Catherine," I said. "Prepare the jet. I am going to Hawaii, and Catherine, I want you to initiate Protocol 0 on Bradley's accounts. Freeze the trust fund, flag the credit cards as stolen, revoke his access to the corporate server. Protocol 0 was the nuclear option. George, that leaves him with absolutely nothing," she whispered. "Exactly," I said. "He wanted to treat me like a ghost. I will show him exactly what it is like to be invisible. I will meet you at the private hangar in 2 hours. Bring the original incorporation documents and a notary." I hung up. I went upstairs and walked to the back of the walk-in closet. I pulled out my bespoke Italian suit, charcoal gray, sharp as a razor blade. I put on my starched white shirt and fastened my gold cufflinks. I looked in the mirror. The tired old man from the airport was gone. George Caldwell, the ruthless shark of the shipping industry, stared back with cold, dead eyes. I walked downstairs. "Let's go to the airport, Silas," I said. "I have a flight to catch, and this time, I am not sitting in the back." The flight on my private Gulfstream was infinitely smoother than any commercial airliner Bradley could have ever booked. I spent the 5 hours not sleeping, but meticulously strategizing. I sat across from Catherine, reviewing the dense legal documents. I mapped out Bradley's exact itinerary based on his painfully predictable social media posts. He would undoubtedly be at the resort's most expensive restaurant tonight, showing off for the vulture investors. We landed in Maui just as the tropical sun was dipping below the horizon. A sleek black SUV was already waiting for us on the private tarmac. "Take me to the Four Seasons," I told the driver, "but use the service entrance. I do not want to be seen." I arrived at the luxurious hotel like a phantom. I went straight through the labyrinth of the back hallways to the general manager's office. Mr. Henderson was a man I had personally hired straight out of college 20 years ago. I had paid for his mother's experimental cancer treatment out of my own pocket. He owed me his loyalty, and I was about to collect. "Mr. Caldwell," Henderson stammered as I walked into his office completely unannounced. "I didn't know you were coming, sir. Your son checked in yesterday. He explicitly told us you were unwell and had stayed behind in Los Angeles." "Did he?" I said, sitting down in the leather chair. "Pull up his folio, Henderson, right now. I want to see exactly what my son is spending my money on." Henderson rapidly typed into his computer, "Sir, he has booked the royal suite. He has ordered 3 bottles of Petrus to the room. The total bill is currently sitting at $42,000. And the payment method? The black Onyx card, ending in 4098. "Under your name, sir." I nodded slowly, a cold smirk touching the corners of my mouth. "Excellent. Henderson, I want you to cancel the royal suite effective tomorrow morning. Move his belongings to a standard room, garden, view. No, better yet, find the one facing the parking lot or the service alley." Henderson's eyes widened in sheer panic. "Sir, he will be absolutely furious. Let him be furious. And Henderson, when he tries to pay for his extravagant dinner tonight with Sterling, I want you to decline the card. Decline it completely. But sir, the credit limit on that card is—" "I am reporting the card stolen," I interrupted, pulling my phone from my pocket. "Right now, when he hands that card to your waiter, I want the system to flash red. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir. I understand completely. Good. Now, give me the key to the villa directly across from the royal suite. I want to watch the show." 10 minutes later, I was standing in the shadows on the balcony of a private, ultra-luxurious villa, looking across the manicured, torchlit gardens. I raised the high-powered marine binoculars. There they were, on the sprawling terrace of the royal suite. Bradley was laughing, his head thrown back. Monica was posing on a lounge chair, taking endless selfies with the sunset. They looked like royalty. They looked completely untouchable. I dialed the secure automated number for the credit card fraud department. "Identity verification," the automated voice requested. I spoke my social security number and secure password. "Report a card lost or stolen," I said clearly. "Which card would you like to report?" "The black Onyx ending in 4098. And cancel all authorized user cards associated with this account." Immediate effect. Transaction complete. I lowered the phone. Across the garden, Bradley was raising his glass for a toast. He had no idea that the limitless ATM in his pocket had just turned into a piece of useless, dead plastic. "Enjoy it, son," I whispered into the tropical breeze. "Because the hangover is going to be incredibly brutal." I turned back into the dimly lit room where Catherine was already setting up a makeshift war room on the dining table. "Ready for dinner?" she asked. "Not yet," I said. "Let them eat first. I want them full and happy before we pull the rug out from under them. Tonight we watch, tomorrow we hunt." I had bugged the planter outside their suite earlier with a high-fidelity microphone. The audio fed directly into my earpiece. Through the gap in the curtains, I watched them perform for their followers on social media. "What's up, guys?" Bradley's voice crackled through my earpiece. Just touched down in Maui, self-made family vacation. He panned the camera to Monica. We missed Grandpa, she cooed, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. But he insisted we go without him. We love you, George. The moment the camera cut off, the smiles vanished from their faces instantly. It was like watching a light switch flip. Bradley slumped into a chair, chugging the rest of his champagne. Night fell completely. They were drunk now. They had moved to the edge of the balcony, looking down at the infinity pool. Guy is going to be there at 10 tomorrow, Bradley slurred slightly. Sterling is bringing the cashier's check, 5 million, boom, just like that, 5 million? Monica laughed. That is it? I thought the old bat's company was worth 10 times that. It is, Bradley scoffed, but liquidating it properly takes time. If I sell the controlling stake privately under the table, we get the cash now. I'll be sipping mojitos on a yacht in the Mediterranean while the employees are filing for unemployment. But what if he finds out? Monica asked. He won't find out until it is too late, Bradley said. And even if he does, what is he going to do? Sue me. I have his medical power of attorney. I will put him in that nursing home on the coast, the one with the high walls. He will be too medicated to know what day it is. A coldness spread through my chest. He was planning to lobotomize me legally to steal my legacy. But then Monica said something that stopped my heart. I don't know, Brad. He is tough, he lingers. It would be so much easier if nature just took its course. Bradley laughed, a dark, ugly sound. Honestly, it would be better if the old man kicked the bucket soon. The life insurance policy pays out double if he dies of natural causes before 71. Just saying, there it was, he calculated the ROI on my death. I set the binoculars down. The fog of fatherhood had lifted. He was a predator, and he had made the fatal mistake of forgetting that he learned how to hunt from me. Later that evening, the flagship restaurant at the Four Seasons was a breathtaking open-air pavilion perched on the edge of the black volcanic cliffs. From my hidden vantage point, I could see Table 12 clearly through my binoculars. Bradley had secured it by loudly dropping my name. My son looked like a king holding court. He was seated at the head of the heavy teak table. To his right sat Monica, glittering in a sequined designer dress. Around them sat the three men from Apex Capital, including Sterling, the man in the slick sharkskin suit. Sterling was not a legitimate investor. He was a known con artist who had spent 2 years in federal prison for wire fraud. But Bradley only saw exactly who he wanted to be. Through the high-fidelity microphone planted in the floral centerpiece, their voices drifted into my room. To the future, Bradley bellowed, raising his expensive crystal glass high into the air. To the future, Sterling echoed smoothly. So, Bradley, if we sign the transfer papers tomorrow morning, my partners are ready to wire the 5 million directly to your offshore account by noon. Bradley laughed an obnoxious sound. Done deal, Sterling. The old man is completely out of the picture. I am the captain now. I watched them devour the meal like starving animals. They ordered the massive Wagyu beef tomahawks, the rich lobster thermidor, the beluga caviar service. They ate with the ravenous hunger of people who genuinely believe the feast will never end. Then, the moment finally arrived, the heavy plates were cleared. The waiter, David, approached with a sleek leather folder. The bill, sir, David said softly. Bradley didn't even bother to look at it. He reached into his tailored jacket pocket and pulled out the black onyx card. Put it all on this, Bradley said, and add 20% for yourself. David picked up the heavy card with 2 hands and walked away toward the point-of-sale terminal. I leaned forward in my chair. I watched David slide the metal card into the machine. I watched him wait. I saw the deep frown crease his forehead. He pulled the card out, wiped the chip carefully, and inserted it again. The red light on the machine flashed ominously. David picked up the phone next to the register. He hung up and walked back to the table with heavy purpose. Sir, David said loudly, clearing his throat. I need another form of payment. This card has been declined. The silence that fell over table 12 was absolute. Declined? Bradley sputtered, his face turning a shade of crimson. That is impossible. That is a black Onyx card. It has no limit. Run it again. I have run it 3 times. Sir, David said, his voice dropping an octave. The code returned is not insufficient funds. The code is stolen. The issuer has flagged this card as misappropriated property. Stolen? Bradley stood up. Do you know who I am? I am Bradley Caldwell. That is my father's card. I have full authorization. The issuer vehemently disagrees, David replied. Do you have another card? Bradley's hands were shaking visibly now. He pulled out his personal leather wallet and slapped a gold Visa onto the table. Try this one. David took it. He walked back to the machine. Same result, declined. Card frozen by account holder. He walked back. Declined, sir. Bradley threw an Amex on the table. Try this. Declined. A debit MasterCard. Declined. By the 4th card, the sweat was highly visible on Bradley's forehead. He looked around the hushed restaurant, his eyes wide and wild with panic. The other wealthy diners were openly staring. The whispers had already started. Sterling cleared his throat loudly and stood up. Well, Bradley, this has been interesting. Wait. Bradley grabbed Sterling's arm desperately. Sit down. It is just a bank glitch. I will call my father. He will sort this out in 2 seconds. Sterling peeled Bradley's sweaty fingers off his sleeve. I don't think so, kid. We do business with professionals. People who can actually pay for their dinner. Call us when you grow up. Sterling and his associates walked away without looking back. Now, it was just Bradley and Monica. Monica turned on him like a viper. You embarrassed me. She hissed. You said the money was already transferred. I did. Bradley pulled out his phone, his thumbs fumbling over the screen. I am calling Dad. He must have done something by accident. I watched my own phone buzz silently on the table next to me in the villa. I let it ring. At the restaurant, Bradley was screaming into his voicemail, Dad, pick up. The cards aren't working. Pick up. David signaled to the manager. 2 extremely large security guards emerged from the shadows and stepped up to the table. Sir, the manager said, the bill is $18,420. We need payment immediately. I can't, Bradley stammered. I don't have any cash on me. Can you just bill it to the room? Your room privileges have been totally revoked, the manager said. The primary account holder has removed you from the folio. You are no longer a guest of this resort, effective tomorrow morning. You are currently trespassing. Monica let out a shriek. She grabbed her designer clutch purse and tried to stand up. I am leaving. I am not a part of this. Sit down, ma'am, the security guard said, blocking her path. No one leaves until the bill is settled, but we don't have the money. Monica wailed, hot tears streaming down her face. Then we will need collateral, the manager said plainly. He looked pointedly at Bradley's wrist. That is a Rolex Daytona, isn't it? And that diamond ring, ma'am. Bradley clutched his wrist protectively. No, not the watch. It was a fake he had bought in Chinatown for $200. The police are on their way, the manager said. Theft of services over $10,000 is a felony in Hawaii. You will be held in the county lockup until your arraignment on Monday. Bradley looked at Monica. Monica looked at the massive ring on her finger. It was the engagement ring I had paid for. Give it to him, Bradley whispered. What? Monica screamed, Are you insane? Give it to him, Bradley roared, or we go to jail, Monica. Sobbing hysterically, Monica wrenched the ring off her finger and threw it onto the table. Bradley slowly unclasped the fake watch. He placed it next to the ring. The manager picked up the items. He examined the watch, feeling the cheap weight of it. He knew, but he didn't say anything. He just nodded. This will serve as a deposit. You have 24 hours to return with payment in full, or these items will be forfeited, and criminal charges will be pressed. Now, get out of my restaurant. Bradley and Monica stood up. The walk of shame was agonizingly long. They had to weave through the tables of staring, completely silent diners. They didn't look like the glamorous power couple from Instagram anymore. They looked like pathetic refugees from a disaster of their own stupid making. I lowered the binoculars. The dinner was over, and for the very first time in his sheltered life, my son had paid the actual price. But the night was far from over. I picked up my phone and sent a quick text to Catherine. Phase 1 complete. Execute the eviction at dawn. The harsh vibration of my phone against the glass table was a grating sound that cut through the peaceful silence of my darkened villa. It was midnight in Los Angeles, which meant that to my son, I should have been fast asleep. But here in Hawaii, it was barely 9 o'clock in the evening. I stared down at the glowing screen. The name Bradley flashed relentlessly. The desperate rat had finally found itself trapped in the maze with absolutely no cheese, and now it was squealing for the hand that used to feed it. I did not answer immediately. I picked up my binoculars instead, across the manicured lawn, through the massive sliding glass doors of the hotel lobby. I could see him. Bradley was pacing back and forth near the concierge desk like a caged animal. His hand was clamped tightly to his ear, his other hand chopping the air violently. Monica was sitting on a nearby bench, looking exactly like a crumbling statue of despair. She was no longer the arrogant queen of the resort. She was just a woman, without a functioning credit limit. I let the phone ring 10 times before I picked up. I cleared my throat, roughening my voice on purpose, expertly summoning the persona of the frail, confused old man they fully believed me to be. "Hello?" I mumbled, slurring my words slightly. "Who is this?" Dad, thank God!" Bradley's voice exploded in my ear, shrill and breathless. "Why didn't you pick up? I have been calling for 10 minutes. "Bradley?" I sighed heavily, feigning disorientation. "It is midnight here. Why are you calling so late? Is everyone okay?" Yes, the kids are fine," he snapped impatiently. "Dad, we have a major problem. The credit cards aren't working. None of them." I kept my gaze fixed intently on his tiny, pacing figure across the garden. "What do you mean, not working?" I asked, keeping my voice maddeningly steady. "I mean they are declined, Dad." "Declined." I tried to pay for dinner, and the waiter told me the account was flagged for fraud. "He said the cards were reported stolen." "You have to call the bank right now." I let a long, agonizing silence hang between us. I watched him stop pacing. He was holding his breath. "Oh, that," I said finally, my tone shifting instantly from sleepy confusion to casually conversational. "Yes, I saw the fraud alerts on my phone earlier this evening." "Alarming? What are you talking about?" "Fix it." "Well, son, the bank sent me a notification. It said someone was trying to charge $18,000 at a restaurant in Maui. $18,000 for one dinner. Can you imagine?" There was a stunned pause on the other end. I could hear his breathing, fast and panicked. "Dad, that was me. That was our dinner." I let out a dry chuckle. "You?" "No, Bradley, that does not make sense at all. You explicitly told me this trip was already paid for. And besides, my son is a smart man. He knows the value of a hard-earned dollar. He would never spend $18,000 on a single meal while his sick father is sitting at home eating leftover soup. That would be unbelievably cruel, wouldn't it?" I saw him flinch. Even from 300 yards away, I saw his shoulders stiffen. "Dad, listen to me," he hissed desperately. "It was a business dinner. I was entertaining investors for the company. I need you to unlock the cards now. They are holding my watch as collateral." "Your watch?" I asked innocently. "The vintage one you told me cost $50,000. "Well, that should cover the bill nicely then. Because I need the cash flow." "Dad, stop asking stupid questions and just call the bank." "Tell them it was me. Tell them to lift the hold." "I cannot do that, Bradley. I reported the card stolen," I said, my voice hardening just a fraction. "When I saw that absurd charge, I assumed my wallet had been compromised. So, I called the fraud department, and I had them cancel everything. The black card, the Visa, the corporate accounts, all of them are dead, Bradley. Gone." "No," he moaned. It was a sound of pure agony. "Tell me you didn't cancel the corporate accounts." "I had to, son, safety first." He was literally screaming now. "You idiot. You senile old idiot. Do you know what you have done? I have a meeting tomorrow morning. I need to pay for the conference room. I have $5 million on the line." $5 million, I repeated calmly. "That sounds like an awful lot of money for a man who conveniently forgot to buy his own father a plane ticket. He stopped cold, the insult hung heavy in the air. "Dad," he pleaded softly, rapidly switching tactics. "Dad, I am sorry about the ticket, honestly. It was a mistake. We miss you here. But please, I am begging you. We have no money. We can't even buy breakfast tomorrow. You can't do this to us." "Bradley," I said, entirely dropping the facade of the confused old man. I sounded exactly like the ruthless CEO I used to be. "Do you remember what you told me at the airport? You told me I was too old. You told me the travel would be too much for me. You told me to go home and rest, Dad. Please." "So, I am resting, Bradley. I am resting very comfortably and dealing with the bank, arguing with fraud departments." "That sounds like a lot of stressful work. And you know how my blood pressure gets, Dad." "Stop it, unlock the cards." "I can't," I lied smoothly. "The bank said I have to come into the branch personally. And since it is the weekend, they are closed until Monday morning." "Monday!" Bradley screamed. "I can't wait until Monday." "The deal is tomorrow." "Then I guess you better find another way to pay," I said coldly. "You are a self-made man, aren't you? That is what you put on your Instagram. Surely a self-made man doesn't need his daddy's credit card to buy eggs for breakfast." "Dad, wait." "Good night, Bradley. Enjoy paradise." I hung up the phone. I raised the binoculars again and watched Bradley stare at his own phone in disbelief. Then, in a fit of blind rage, he wound up and threw the device. It smashed against the marble floor of the lobby. Monica screamed at him. He screamed back. A masterpiece of chaos. I set my binoculars down. I had taken away his safety net, and now, for the first time in his sheltered life, my son was in freefall. The morning sun in Maui is usually a gentle wake-up call, but for my son and his wife, the morning brought a very different kind of heat. It started promptly, at 8 o'clock in the morning. I knew their routine perfectly. Monica liked to have breakfast on the private balcony of the royal suite. But today, there would be no room service. I had explicitly instructed the kitchen to blacklist their room number at midnight. A moment later, the heavy wooden door of the royal suite opened. Bradley and Monica emerged into the hallway, dressed in their resort finest. They marched down the hallway toward the VIP club lounge. When they reached the glass doors that separated the high-roller suites from the commoners, Bradley swiped his key card. The light blinked red. He swiped it again. Red. He kicked the door petulantly. Mr. Henderson stepped forward. I had bugged the hallway planter, so the audio fed directly into my earpiece. "Good morning, Mr. Caldwell," Henderson said, his voice dangerously polite. "Open this door," Bradley snapped. "Your system is absolute garbage. My key isn't working. The room service line is dead, and I have a crucial meeting in 2 hours." "I am afraid I cannot do that," Sir Henderson replied. "The electronic keys are programmed to automatically deactivate when a reservation is terminated." "Terminated?" Monica stepped forward. "We are booked for a week. My father-in-law paid for it." "Correct," Henderson said evenly. "Mr. George Caldwell paid for it, and late last night he exercised his right as the primary cardholder to drastically modify the reservation. He felt that the royal suite was perhaps a bit too excessive for your current financial needs." "Modify?" Bradley laughed. "Okay, fine. Just let us into the lounge so we can eat, and I will call him from a payphone. Access to the club lounge is strictly reserved for our suite guests," Henderson said, physically blocking their path. "And since you are no longer suite guests, I must ask you to return to your room to pack. You have exactly 30 minutes to vacate the royal suite." "Vacate? You can't kick us out." "He has transferred your booking to a different room category. He moved you to room 104, room 104. Monica scoffed loudly. "Is that an ocean view suite?" "It is a standard garden room," Henderson said. "Located on the lower level of the service wing." "The service wing?" Monica shrieked. "You want us to stay in the basement with the maids and the laundry staff?" "Now please, you need to move your belongings immediately," Henderson said, casually signaling the security guards to step closer. "If you do not vacate the suite in 30 minutes, we will be forced to physically remove your belongings for you." Bradley realized with sinking dread that he had no leverage. He turned to Monica. Let's just go back, he muttered, utterly defeated. 45 minutes later, they emerged from the royal suite. Bradley was sweating profusely as he dragged two of the massive Louis Vuitton trunks. Monica followed closely behind, carrying only her handbag. Henderson guided them toward the service elevator. It was a large, scuffed metal box used for laundry carts. It smelled strongly of industrial bleach and old coffee. I switched my camera feed to the security camera in the lower hallway. Room 104 was in the service wing. It was located directly above the industrial laundry facility, and next to the loading dock where the garbage trucks reversed loudly every morning. Bradley swiped his new key card. He pushed the door open. The room was barely 300 square feet. The window faced a concrete retaining wall and the massive dumpster enclosure. "Oh my God!" Monica screamed through the thin walls via the hallway bug. "It smells like mildew, and look at the bed." "It is a queen. We sleep in a king, Bradley." "A king, it is just for a few hours, Monica." Bradley yelled back, "Stop screaming." "It is hot in here. Where is the AC remote?" "There is no remote. It is a dirty knob on the wall." "And look at the window. That is a trash can, Bradley. I can see flies." I walked over to the desk in my villa and dialed the front desk. "Connect me to room 104, I said. The phone rang in their room. I heard Bradley fumble wildly for it. "Hello? Who is this? Help us." "Hey, son," I said, my voice incredibly cheerful. "Just checking in. How is the new room?" "Dad, you sick, twisted," Bradley sputtered. "Get us out of here." "There are ants on the windowsill." "Oh, I am sorry to hear that," I said. "But budgets are tight. I had to downgrade you to the economy package. It is the exact same package I used to stay in when I was a truck driver. Remember?" "Dad, stop trying to teach me a lesson and send the black card. I have the meeting with Sterling in an hour." "I hope you packed some granola bars," I said. "Oh, and Bradley, one more thing. I wouldn't count on that meeting with Sterling. I imagine it is incredibly hard to close a $5 million deal when you are staying in a room next to the garbage chute." I hung up before he could answer, but the humiliation was not contained to the room. Hunger is a powerful motivator. Bradley and Monica stormed out of room 104 and marched back to the main lobby, determined to create a scene. "I want to speak to the owner," Monica demanded, slamming her hand on the marble counter. "This is illegal. You are holding us hostage in a dungeon." "Sir, we have spoken to your father," the concierge said calmly. "He said that if you caused a disturbance, we were to treat you like any other unruly guest." Security, 3 uniformed guards surrounded them instantly. "Sir, ma'am, you have 2 choices. You can return to your room, or you can be escorted off the property. If you are escorted off, you will be trespassing, and we will call the Maui Police Department." Bradley looked around. The lobby was filled with guests holding up their phones, recording. "Fine," Bradley whispered. "We are going back." They turned around, flanked by the guards, and began the long walk back to the service elevator. The guests parted like the Red Sea. I saw the shame burn on Bradley's face. I checked my watch. The meeting with Sterling was scheduled for noon. It was time for me to get dressed. I chose a white linen suit, one that whispered old money and absolute authority. The basement was just the holding cell. The execution chamber was waiting upstairs. The conference room Bradley had managed to secure was not the grand oceanfront boardroom. They were huddled in a small, windowless meeting space on the ground floor. The air in there was stale, recycled, and thick with the pungent scent of desperation. I watched them intently through the pinhole camera embedded in the smoke detector, a live feed broadcasting directly to my tablet. My son sat on one side of a cheap folding plastic table. His expensive linen shirt was wrinkled and stained with sweat. Beside him, Monica was pacing the length of the small room, biting her nails aggressively. Opposite them sat Sterling. The vulture capitalist looked perfectly at ease. On the table between them lay a single manila envelope and a heavy fountain pen. "So," Sterling said, breaking the suffocating silence, "let us review the current situation. You owe the resort $18,000. You owe my associates $9,000, because we covered our half of the bill. Your credit cards are completely dead. Your hotel room is a closet next to a dumpster. And you have absolutely no way off this island. Bradley swallowed hard. Look, Sterling, it is just a temporary liquidity issue. My father, he is having a medical episode. I just need a bridge loan, just $50,000. I will pay you back double next week. Sterling laughed. A bridge loan? Bradley, you are a liability. The only thing you have of any actual value is that power of attorney. Sterling slid a thick document across the table. This is the purchase agreement for Caldwell Logistics. $5 million cash wired to your offshore account in the Cayman Islands within the hour. Bradley looked at the document, his hands trembling. $5 million? Sterling, are you crazy? The fleet alone is worth $4 million. This company is worth $50 million minimum. You are asking me to sell it for 10 cents on the dollar. I am asking you to sell it for the price of your freedom, Sterling replied coldly. You are looking at this like a businessman, Bradley. You are not a businessman. You are a fugitive in waiting. If you do not pay that hotel bill by this evening, you go to jail. I am offering you a lifeboat. Bradley looked at the paper. He knew that selling it for $5 million was an insult. It was spitting on my grave before I was even in it. I can't do it, Bradley muttered. My dad, if he finds out I sold a $50 million empire for $5 million, he will kill me. He is not going to kill you. Monica hissed. She slammed her hands down on the table, leaning aggressively into Bradley's face. He is going to disown you anyway. We are already dead to him. The only difference is, if you sign that paper, we are dead with $5 million in the bank. Monica, it is my dad's legacy, Bradley pleaded. Who cares? Monica screamed. I care about me. I care about us. Do you want to rot in a Hawaiian jail cell? Sign the paper, Bradley. She grabbed the pen and shoved it violently into his hand. We can go to Europe, she whispered seductively. We can take the money and disappear. Just sign it and we are free. Bradley looked at the pen. He looked at Sterling. If I sign this, the money is wired today, Sterling promised smoothly. And you will pay the hotel bill. Consider it a signing bonus. I waited for the spark of integrity that I had tried so hard to ignite in him. But there was no spark. There was only ash. Where do I sign? He asked. Page 20, Sterling said. And remember, you are signing as George Caldwell per the power of attorney proxy. I zoomed in with the camera. Bradley placed the tip of the pen on the signature line. He didn't write Bradley Caldwell. He forged my signature. When he finished, he slumped back in his chair. It is done, Bradley whispered. Monica grabbed the document and kissed the signature. We did it. We are rich. We are safe. Sterling smiled, a shark baring its teeth. Pleasure doing business with you, Bradley. I sat in my villa. They thought they had just bought their freedom. They had absolutely no idea that they had just signed a confession. The document was irrefutable proof of fraud, embezzlement, and elder abuse. By signing my name to sell an asset he knew was undervalued, based on a power of attorney obtained under false pretenses, he had committed a federal felony that carried a mandatory minimum sentence of 10 years in prison. I picked up my phone. Catherine was on speed dial. He signed it, I said. I saw it. Catherine replied. The notary is waiting outside the conference room door. The police are with him. Give them 2 minutes, I said. Let them celebrate. I want the fall to be absolute. I stood up, adjusting my white linen suit. I walked out of the villa and crossed the manicured lawn toward the conference room. I reached the door. I did not knock. I pushed the door open. It swung wide, hitting the wall stopper with a loud wooden thud. The reaction inside was instant. Sterling flinched. Monica let out a sharp scream. Bradley dropped the pen. They all stared at me. The silence was suffocating. They looked at my crisp white suit. They looked at the total lack of the frailty I had feigned for so long. I stepped into the room then. I raised my hands and I began to clap, 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 clap. The sound was terrifyingly loud. $120,000, I said, my voice low but filling every corner of the room. That is what I spent on this vacation. $120,000 for a theater ticket. And I have to say, looking at this pathetic scene, at the cheap forgery, the performance was much cheaper than I expected, Dad. Bradley whispered. Dad too can explain. Explain why you just signed my name to a document selling a $50 million company for $5 million. Explain why you and your wife were discussing the benefits of my early death on the balcony last night. Bradley's face drained of all color. He looked at the smoke detector on the ceiling. You were watching, he stammered. I am always watching, Bradley, I said. Did you really think you could steal my kingdom while I was still sitting on the throne? I turned to Sterling. The con man was already moving, trying to edge toward the door. Sit down, Mr. Sterling, I commanded. I think there has been a misunderstanding, Sterling said, his smooth voice wavering. I will just be going. You are not going anywhere. Catherine stepped into the room, flanked by the police officers. Mr. Isaac Sterling, we have a warrant for your arrest from the FBI for wire fraud and conspiracy to commit grand larceny. And, adding to that list, we now have video evidence of you knowingly soliciting a forged signature on a federal contract. Sterling sank back into his chair. Monica let out a wail. She lunged toward me, desperately grabbing my sleeve. George, Dad, please, I didn't know. I told him not to do it. I am a victim here. Get your hands off me, I said quietly. She recoiled. You told him not to do it? I seem to recall you saying, sign the paper, Bradley. We can go to Monaco. My memory is quite sharp, Monica. I turned back to Bradley. He was looking at the handcuffs on the officers' belts. Dad, he whispered, don't let them take me. Please, I am your son. You stopped being my son the exact moment you told me to go home. I said. You wanted to make big deals. Well, this is how business works. You made a terrible investment. And you lost. I nodded to the officers. Officers, take them. Monica screamed as the officer grabbed her arm. Bradley did not fight. When the cold metal of the handcuffs clicked around his wrists, he flinched. Bradley looked at me one last time. He wasn't crying because he was sorry. He was crying because he knew he completely deserved this. As they were dragged into the hallway, I walked over to Bradley, who was now sitting back down in a chair, handcuffed. Isaac Sterling never had $5 million, I said. He runs a massive Ponzi scheme targeting distressed heirs. He was going to take your signature, leverage a loan against my company assets, and then disappear. You were handing him the keys to the vault so he could rob it and leave you holding the bag. Bradley's knees gave way. He mourned the absolute loss of his own intelligence. Monica, I said. She jumped, forcing a fake smile. George, thank God you stopped him. He is crazy, George. He forced me to stay in that horrible room. I didn't sign anything. Bradley looked at his wife with pure confusion. Monica, you handed me the pen. He is lying. She shrieked. You are right, Monica, I said softly. Your name is not on the contract. She let out a sob of relief. See, I had nothing to do with it, but, I continued, my security team recorded the audio from your balcony last night. I heard you tell him my death would be convenient. I heard you at the airport. You are a parasite. You latched on to my son because you thought he was a golden ticket. I turned to the police officer. Officer, is she under arrest? The officer shook his head. Legally, she is just a witness. Monica let out a hysterical laugh. See, I am free. I am booking a flight home, George. I expect you to handle the ticket. You have been formally evicted from the resort, I said. Your Louis Vuitton trunks are currently sitting on the curb outside the service entrance. If you set foot in the lobby, you will be arrested. Her mouth dropped open. But how am I supposed to get to the airport? I have no money, I shrugged. I hear it is a nice walk. I am your daughter-in-law. Not anymore, I said. Bradley will be filing for divorce, and since you signed a prenuptial agreement, you leave with nothing. She looked at Bradley. He didn't look at her. I pulled out a $20 bill, crumpled it into a ball, and tossed it at her feet. Here, grab a sandwich at the airport. Greed one. She snatched the bill. I hate you, she hissed. I am already alone, Monica, I said. Now get out. She turned and ran. The room was quiet again. Just me, Catherine, the police, and my son. I motioned to Catherine. She placed a plea deal on the table. Option 1, I said, you go with these officers. We press charges. You get 5 to 10 years. Option 2, you sign this document. You voluntarily terminate your parental rights to the trust fund. You agree to stay in Hawaii. You dig ditches for a landscaping business on the North Shore. Minimum wage. If you survive a year without calling me for money, then, and only then, will I drop the charges. Bradley stared at me. I can't do manual labor, Dad. Your back is fine, I snapped. It is your spine that is missing. Find it. I turned to the officer, uncuff one hand. Let him sign. Bradley hesitated, hoping Monica would come back. But nobody was coming. He signed. Take the cuffs off, I told the officer. He is staying. As the metal clicked open, Bradley slumped against the table, sobbing. He was at rock bottom, and rock bottom is the only solid foundation to build on. I walked to the door. Goodbye, son, I said. I hope to meet the man you become. 6 months have passed since the doors of that windowless conference room swung open and closed the book on my son's life of luxury. In the world of global logistics and private equity, 6 months is the blink of an eye. But in the sweltering, unforgiving heat of a Hawaiian summer on the North Shore, 6 months is an absolute eternity. I sat on the deck of my Malibu estate, looking out over the churning gray waters of the Pacific Ocean. The house was quiet. The silence used to feel oppressive, a heavy blanket of loneliness that smothered me after Sarah died. But now, the silence felt remarkably like peace. The toxic noise of Bradley and Monica's entitlement had been completely exorcised from my life. I picked up the thick dossier sitting on the table next to my coffee cup. It was the monthly report from John, my old friend who owned the landscaping business where Bradley was currently employed. I didn't open it immediately. Instead, I let my mind drift back to the aftermath of that explosive day. The divorce between Bradley and Monica had been finalized in record time. It was a vicious, bloody affair, though neither of them had any assets left to fight over. Monica had attempted to sue me for emotional distress, claiming that my cruel and unusual punishment of evicting her had caused irreparable psychological damage. The judge, a no-nonsense woman with zero tolerance for frivolous lawsuits, threw the case out in less than 10 minutes. The last I heard, Monica had moved back in with her parents in a cramped 2-bedroom apartment in Ohio, bitterly complaining to anyone who would listen about the billionaire father-in-law who had ruined her life. Isaac Sterling, the vulture capitalist, was not so lucky. His arrest at the Four Seasons was just the tip of a massive iceberg. The FBI had seized his assets, uncovering a web of Ponzi schemes that had defrauded dozens of elderly victims out of their life savings. The forged contract Bradley had signed became the nail in Sterling's coffin. He was currently serving 15 years in federal prison. And then there was Bradley. I opened the dossier. The first page was a photograph taken by John. It showed a man standing in a muddy trench, holding a heavy steel shovel. He was deeply tanned, his skin leathery from the relentless tropical sun. He was wearing faded denim jeans and a sweat-stained gray t-shirt. His hands, once soft and perfectly manicured, were wrapped in thick leather work gloves. It was my son, but the man in the photograph was unrecognizable from the arrogant manic boy who had left me at the airport. The report detailed his progress. Bradley has not missed a single shift in 6 months, John wrote. He arrives at 5:30 a.m. every day. He works 10 hours in the heat. He does not complain. He does not talk back to the foreman. At first, the other guys gave him a hard time because he was slow and weak. But he put his head down and did the work. Last week, he volunteered for overtime to help clear a massive fallen banyan tree after a storm. He is paying off his debt to the hotel steadily. He lives in the dormitory, eats the cafeteria food, and sleeps on a twin mattress. He hasn't asked for a dime. I ran my finger over the photograph. A strange, unexpected knot tightened in my throat. It wasn't pity. Pity is what crippled him in the first place. Pity is what made me sign the checks and cover the gambling debts and turn a blind eye to his profound disrespect. No, this wasn't pity. It was the faint, flickering ember of pride. For 40 years, I had handed him the world on a silver platter, and he had treated it like garbage. I had tried to teach him the value of hard work by lecturing him in comfortable, air-conditioned rooms. But you cannot teach a starving man the value of food by describing a banquet. You have to let him feel the hunger. Bradley was finally feeling the hunger. He was learning that respect is not inherited. It is earned in the dirt, in the sweat, in the quiet dignity of an honest day's labor. I closed the dossier. The year was only half over. He still had 6 months left on his plea deal. 6 more months of calluses, sunburns, and exhaustion. I did not know what would happen when the year was up. I did not know if the transformation would stick, or if the old Bradley would resurface the moment he had access to a comfortable bed and a warm shower. But for the first time in a decade, I had hope. I turned my attention to the second document on my table. It was a bound portfolio, crisp and pristine, bearing the official seal of the state of California. The title read, "The Sarah Caldwell Foundation for Vocational Excellence." Catherine had worked miracles. The Aspen vacation home, the 80-foot yacht, the fleet of luxury cars, every single excessive, unnecessary asset had been liquidated. The funds, totaling over $15 million, had been poured entirely into the foundation. We were not giving the money to entitled heirs or Ivy League endowments. We were building trade schools in underserved communities. We were buying state-of-the-art tools for plumbing apprentices, welding stations for aspiring fabricators, and heavy machinery simulators for construction trainees. We were investing in kids who knew what it meant to struggle, kids who just needed a chance to prove their worth. I had spent my entire life building an empire of logistics, moving boxes and cargo across the oceans. But this foundation was my true legacy. I was finally building people. I picked up my phone and dialed Catherine's number. "George," she answered on the first ring, her voice sharp and efficient. "Did you review the foundation documents?" "I did, Catherine. It is perfect. Sarah would be incredibly proud. We break ground on the first training center in Oakland next month," she said, a hint of genuine warmth in her tone. "They want you there to cut the ribbon." "I wouldn't miss it for the world," I replied. I paused, looking back out at the ocean. The gray clouds were breaking, allowing shafts of brilliant sunlight to hit the water. "And Catherine," I added softly. "Yes, George? Keep a close eye on Bradley's progress reports. If he finishes the year, if he truly finishes the year without breaking, without begging, without trying to find a shortcut." I took a deep breath. "Have John offer him a permanent position as a crew foreman. Not a manager, not a desk job, a foreman. Let him lead a crew in the dirt." Catherine laughed softly. "A Caldwell digging ditches for a living. That is quite the plot twist, George." "It is not a plot twist, Catherine. It is an education." I hung up the phone. I leaned back in my chair, the warm California breeze rustling the leaves of the palm trees above me. The heavy burden of fatherly guilt, the constant fear of my son's inevitable failure, the bitter sting of his ultimate betrayal, it had all washed away, carried out with the tide. I had lost the boy, who left me at the airport. I had burned his world to the ground and salted the earth, so nothing of his arrogance could ever grow there again. But from those ashes a man was finally beginning to emerge. And for the first time in my life, I was genuinely excited to meet him.